If we do regain the ball now, the situation we've got is 9, 10, 11, 7, all between the lines, all in a position to create a 4v2 overload. I'm going to talk a little bit about pressing from the front, the advantages of it, certain principles within it. In terms of highlighting the principles, initially I've got the team I'm going to focus on as a 4-2-3-1, but then I'll look to show it in a 3-5-2 and hopefully highlight how it's principle based and not a case of you go here, you must go there, you must go there. So first and foremost, why would we want to regain the ball early and high up the pitch as possible? Well, the simple fact is we regain it high up the pitch, the closer to the opposition's goal we are. So from an offensive point of view, that's the rationale. From a defensive point of view, we want to impose ourselves on our opponents. We want to, in an ideal world, dominate the ball. And therefore, we don't want the opposition getting in a nice routine, a nice rhythm and dictating the game. So they're the two reasons we want to regain the ball early and help the pitch as possible. Principally, how does it need to look? So simple rule is we are narrow. Opposition can't go through us. They can go around us. They can't go through us. So not only do we want to be compact and narrow that way, we also want to keep the unit lines close together. So we want our defenders to play high. We want everyone high up the pitch, and we're able to do that if we get pressure on the ball. Whilst our defenders are high up the pitch, it's still absolute paramount importance that the priority is to protect the space in behind. So again, we're getting returns of the goalkeeper working on his starting positions, defenders ready to go in tight, but also ready to drop. And then here, again, initially we're 4-2-3-1. So ball with the centre-back, nearest player centre forward, can he press? So we want to make it predictable for the rest of the team. So as a simple rule, can you run in a straight line at his nearest foot? That naturally will keep them outside. In the event that we press and he goes back to the other centre half, one of two ways in which we can engage that. First is that our 10 jumps out and our 9 comes back in. So it's just a simple principle of pressure and cover. Ball goes across, pressure and cover, and he looks to get around the nearest midfield player. From there, obviously, once we lock it out one side, we come out one way and we lock it out and we come across. Other way of pressing, the other centre half, and this is what we'd call our jump press. So for me, this is the most aggressive way of pressing because it gets us more players high up the pitch. In an ideal world, we'd keep it this side, we'd keep him locked out one side. So we're all geared up for the play to be this side. So the opposite winger comes narrow to try and lock it in. If they do manage to wriggle out and play the ball, rule, if you think you can arrive as the ball arrives or you can affect the ball, you go. So we jump on, ideally trying to intercept it, to tackle and look to go yourself. In the event, again, that we don't quite make it, our fullback jumps, fullback to fullback. So now, as it's played, fullback's on the way to jump and nick the ball. Now the back four slides across, left centre half becomes a left back, come right in, across, and we leave the player on the furthest side of the pitch. So it's ultra aggressive. In here now, winger who's pressed, back tackles. So any unit line, once your unit line's penetrated, you back tackle. So we're looking to double press, set traps. Roll of the 9 and 10, lock them out one side, stop the switch, don't let them get out this side. If we do regain the ball now, the situation we've got is 9, 10, 11, 7, all between the lines, all in a position to create a 4v2 overload. So that gives an insight of the rewards if we get that right and if we get that aggressive. From a development point of view, why do we do this and what are the returns for our players that we're developing? Well, like I said, we want our teams anyway to be on the front foot and aggressive. The high energy press gets high physical returns in terms of explosive distance, in terms of high speed running. But also physically, if the fullback does jump on, we're getting our centre-backs defending in them fullback positions. So we're quite happy, even if they're equal numbers versus 9, 10, 7, even if they're equal numbers, we'll take that because it means the 1v1 defending, the individual defending, it comes out in a game situation. And then eventually when they progress into the first team, maybe they're not asked to go into these types of situations and they find it easier. But we'll look to expose them. Can you defend the channel? Can you defend 1v1? If we reset and restart the initial setup, what else do we want from the players behind the press? So he's on the ball, we lock him out one side. Marking positions from everyone is ball side, goal side. So nearest midfielder, ball side, goal side. On the outside shoulder, midfielder doing the same, lock in, compact. If the ball goes in, by being on the outside, if it's not a safe side pass, if he shows the ball, we've got a chance of nicking it, regaining it, and again, being aggressive in that situation. If it is safe side, get tight, force him back. Again, principally, unit line penetrated, back tackle and recover. So we'd encourage every unit line to back tackle and recover. So we're suffocating and smothering the opposition in these situations. And again, on regain, we've got the opportunity to go and break. So that is a little bit of a whistle stop of how it looks in a 4-2-3-1. Again, principle based, narrow, compact, pressure and cover. They go around us, not through us, and unit line penetrated with back tackle. So if we adjust us now into a 3-5-2, and again, even in game, if we were to change our shape or late on, as often happens in academy football, where a player maybe has to move age groups or goes with the first team, and we just have to adapt accordingly. So irrelevant of whether it's been worked on, if the players understand the principles, the rest will take care of itself. So now then, centre-back's on the ball. It might be that we elect, if he's got comfy possession, we might elect not to press this one initially. If you can't affect the ball, stay in, stay high, stay compact. So if the ball's played and he thinks he can affect, he goes, and again keeps outside. The other centre forward locks it out one side. Next pass. This space here is a mandatory pressing zone. So whilst the central area we don't have to press, we accept that there might be times when we can't go. Once they're in this sort of fullback zone, here and here, it's mandatory press. And the reason is, once they go into that area, we can lock them out one side. So as it goes, we get pressure on the ball and we lock out one side. 9 and 10 lock it out and we slide across accordingly. If the fullback's high and our unit lines are brave, we should be able to jump wing back to fullback and lock it out. So whilst the setup's a 3-5-2, wing back jumps on, now we become a back four. Left centre back becomes a left back, middle centre back becomes left centre back in a 4, right centre back becomes a right centre back in a 4, and the opposite wing back becomes a right back. So the picture looks exactly the same pretty much as how we had it previously, where we lock it out one side, the left wing back's a left winger, and principally we're in exactly the same position. And again, aggressive, if we regain it, we can go through. And we look to stop the switch. Marking positions behind the ball, all goal side, ball side. Aggressive. Any tactically minded opponent in this scenario, against as a back four against a 3-5-2 or against wing backs in general, teams will generally look to try and square off their fullbacks in order to get a scenario where the distance for the wing back to jump's big. So it could be that if the distance is too big and the wing back starts going, and as he's starting edging, the centre back's not got round, we're potentially vulnerable to that ball down the side. So they'll look to drop that down. If they do that, it still might be that we start the wing back higher in the initial phase of their build-up, or the other option is we send out the wide midfield player. So as the ball travels, outside midfielder goes, we stay as a back five. But in here, what needs to happen is the deep line midfielder comes up and we get in 2v2 against their midfielders in here. Centre forwards, lock it out one side, and we're a back five. So effectively here, we've got an extra player. Wing back's responsibility, protect the channel and be aware of the wide player. Now, whether we're in a 4 or a 5, we want our defenders to be comfortable to going in tight with players. So tactically now, at this moment, we've locked it out one side. These are their 2 spare players. We've locked it out one side. So how might they seek an overload in this situation? At the moment, we're 2v2 in midfield, but it could quite simply be that wide player drops in or the 10 drops in here to try and create a 3v2 overload in the middle of the pitch. What must happen now, centre-back must be willing to go in, whether it be the middle one, whether it be this one, centre-back must be willing to go in tight. Rest of the unit balance off, and once again, we're now a 4. So people will often talk about formations and potentially get hung up on formations. For me and us as an academy, we're about principles. And if the players can understand these simple principles, irrelevant of what formation they play, it should come out and they should be able to adapt accordingly. So within this setup here, there's no black and white. It's not a simple case of you press him, you go there. There's decisions to be made. And again, when we're developing players, we want independent learners. Now, as long as we can give them the framework to say these are the principles of what we operate, well, once we give them that, there's then the decisions to be made in the game. Now, for sure, at times they'll get them wrong, and it's up to them to reflect and us to help them reflect. But from a psychological point of view, it gives them decision making. It's not black and white. From a social point of view, it means they have to communicate. So if we get that back with the centre half now, and this is our 3 midfield players, the communication needs to go on between wing back and outside midfield player. The communication from behind the line might say to the centre forward, listen, go and engage, trigger the press. So the communication happening there. And again, here, who's going? What we don't want is no one going, and we don't want both going. So there needs to be the communication. If both go, suddenly got a situation here that could cause us a problem. And hopefully that gives an insight into some of the principles and the rules and the rationale between looking to press high up the pitch. For me as a coach, I think probably the team that has pressed better than anyone, certainly in the Premier League over recent years, have been Liverpool, Klopp's Liverpool. So again, front end of the pitch, players that work tirelessly for the team, players that will not only press forward, but as the ball's in there, you look at the likes of Mane, Salah, Firmino, back tackling all over the pitch. And again, the comparison between the Liverpool press is that they press from a central area and they compact centrally. The contradiction to the narrow one is probably Bielsa's press. So I know a lot of coaches have been inspired by the way Marcelo's teams press. And fundamentally, they'll go man-to-man all over the pitch, but with a +1 at the back. So whatever happens, they don't mind inviting the pass into the front line. So if we put them at 4-3-3. So it could be man-to-man, all over the pitch. Everyone goes in tight, and it's a +1 at the back. So however it is, aggressive press everywhere, -1 up front. So it might be the lockout one side. And they accept that they might get dragged everywhere. Now, what that does is it encourages the opposition to play into the centre forward. So when we ever played against Leeds teams who operated this way, the game was always so transitional. And even when you just want to try and get a settling pass, It was tough, it was hard because they wouldn't allow you a backward pass and they would go everywhere. And the game was naturally transitional because your free pass was the pass into your centre forward effectively. But what would happen there would be, because the 2v1, be ultra aggressive in trying to intercept. And again, the games often became like a game of basketball, which I found fascinating. But for me, like I say, the two coaches over the last few years that have really pressed both aggressively, but with clear principles, Bielsa and Klopp. Principally, there's different rules. And like I say, for me, the Liverpool model, the Klopp model of been pressing from in to out and conceding ground outside, for me, is the one that's closest to the one we like to adopt at Stoke.